If you were to go online right now, you would find 100 different guides easily, all telling you that this, that, or the other is the best way to spec whatever characters that you're creating in Diablo 4. Now, if you're a new player coming into this game for the first time, I would actually urge you to throw away those guides for the moment. They are very useful when you're a little deeper into the game and you have a better understanding of how all of these things work together. Because it's one thing to talk about how they all work and why you should be using these things, and to see a fancy collage of images or screenshots or video sections which show one particular build, just completely dominating the battlefield. But the thing to remember about all of this is that just like the character creation process, when personal preference dictates which one of these presets I might want to choose to best represent my avatar in game, or the best tattoos or the best skin tones and so on and so forth, it's also true that when it comes to the gameplay of Diablo 4, there are, I would argue, an infinite amount of combinations that you could choose in terms of not just the way your skills operate and the way you're going to play your class when you're playing solo, but also when it comes to the multiplayer. If you're going to be choosing to play multiplayer in this game, who are you going to be playing multiplayer with? Are you going to be playing with other people who are just random people from the community, like whether you're playing on Xbox or multi-platform? Are you just doing rando groups, or are you grouping with a set static group of friends who regularly meet up on like a Thursday night or something? Because the way that you answer that question is going to determine how you spec your character, and this is where the title of this video comes into play. Build the build that you want to build, not the build that someone else is telling you to build. And the reason I say that is because when you start diving into this game, the skill tree is great. You can see lots of fun different ways to spec your character, based on the abilities you think are going to be the coolest. And one of the nice things about this game is you can respec at will for almost no cost. It doesn't really cost anything. Not only can you, turn back the clock, as it were, and choose to forget a skill that you learned in favor of another skill, you can actually completely unlearn the entire skill tree if you choose to do so, which allows you to quickly change your character on the fly to suit the needs of whatever group you're going into. Or if you come up against an encounter that feels too difficult, or is something that you're not quite able to get around with the current build that you're playing, that's when you can switch to something else and go, oh, I like this build when I'm doing this type of gameplay, but if I'm going to be grouping up with these two people over here, I'm going to need to switch over and use my daggers instead of my crossbow, or I'm going to need to use cold damage instead of poison damage. And that's the other aspect of building your own build, is that no two classes are ever going to group up exactly the same way, because of the fact that there are synergies going on between the different classes based off of the combo components, or not just the combo components, but like, are you doing fire and ice? That's going to affect other classes. Are you using poison? That's going to affect other classes. The way that you play and the abilities that you choose directly impact the other players around you if you are playing the player versus environment PvE game together, which is why I say it's a different thing based on whether or not you want to be soloing, or if you're going to be going through the game and playing with other people. I would also always urge people to not think about the perfect build for your character until you've had a chance to get in and just play around with all the different things. The developers of this game, or any ARPG like this, where you can easily respec your character without a huge cost associated with it, they want you to play around with different things. And not only that, but they have put in dozens of different abilities for players to choose from. Hundreds, really, if you consider the variation between all the different class combinations here and the permutations that can happen. There are hundreds of abilities and different combinations to choose from when it comes to playing this game, which is why I will always argue against people who claim that there is one definite build for every single class. There's definitely what I consider to be the best build, but that's the best build for my particular playstyle, not other people's playstyles, because I'm not necessarily, interested in doing the maximum amount of DPS for a given fight. I want to just be able to, progress the storyline and have fun. However, Once you get into tier, I'm on tier 1, right? So I'm playing the game for storyline. Once you get into tier 2, it does start to become a little bit more important in terms of your rotations and the ability you've chosen, because some of these fights are absolutely DPS check fights, where if you don't get it done in a certain amount of time, you're going to start running into health potion issues and power issues and so on and so forth. So it is important to keep that stuff in mind, but if this is your first time playing the game, don't let other people dictate the way you're going to play. You can use guides if you want to help guide you towards how you want to create your very first character, but I would argue that you should just jump in the game, put it on tier 1 difficulty, play the what's up everybody commercial break here. I got to give a shout out to our guild champions. It's the highest tier membership here on YouTube. We got Ancient Entity, Craziest Relative, and Remy D. Thanks so much for your support. And of course to all of the members here on YouTube, thanks for keeping me on the air full time. If you do like what you see and hear on my channel, don't forget to not only like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, but please support. Consider me your Netflix, your Hulu, your Disney Plus, or HBO, whatever you want to call it. You can do memberships here on the channel, starting at $3 a month. And of course, anytime you see me live or you watch a premiere, you can do super chats and stickers on those videos, and super thanks on any upload you see, which allows me to keep doing this full time and paying the bills. So from Chris and I and all of our rescue cats, we say thank you. Let's get back to the video at hand. The intro, the prologue. The prologue is an excellent training ground. It takes about, I would argue, about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how quickly you're going to play and go through everything, if you've seen the story before or not. But there's a lot of different class combos that you could try out, and lots of different ways to go through each individual class. Like with a sorcerer in particular, as an example, you might find that you like fire more than ice, or you might like ice more than fire, or you might like electrical more than either of those other two. And if you're playing a rogue, you might choose daggers as opposed to bows, which is, I prefer the ranged component to things. But yeah, I would just say get in the game, play around with things, use that respec ability to your discretion, at your discretion, as much as you want to, because it doesn't cost anything. And you can just go through that prologue sequence with all the different classes and just figure out a build that feels good to you. Because by the time you get through the prologue, you will have gotten your first few abilities, which are kind of like the seminal abilities that carry you through, the base game. It's cool to get your ultimate ability. I got mine, I think, around level 30. It's cool to get your ultimate and passives and things of that nature, but really the first 3 abilities you get are going to be the ones that sort of define your combat experience through the early sections of the gameplay. So it's usually a good idea to choose a really powerful single attack ability for your main, and then you've got your first, whatever's the first, optional ability that you get, make that an AoE of whatever damage type it is, because you want to be able to do AoEs. And then from there, I would say that the biggest thing to focus on is just some sort of an evasive ability that allows you to escape very quickly, to get out of danger when you're being overwhelmed, because there will be a lot of that happening. But there's so much AoE happening in this game, and you're so often getting just hit by waves and waves and waves and waves and waves and waves of mobs, that it really does behoove you to put a lot of your early points into something that's going to give you lots of AoE damage and the ability to escape quickly, so that if you do start to get overwhelmed, you're not stuck there in the middle of combat. And I think that that applies to every single build that you're going to choose to make. So it won't matter if we're talking barbarian, druid, sorcerer, rogue, necromancer. Those first 3 abilities are really the way that your class is going to play. And because of the way you could just choose from all the various skills within the game, you can define how that early experience is, whether it's, fire and ice, or lightning and poison, or, lots of melee damage, jumping into the fray and doing tons of AoEs up close and personal, or doing AoEs from a distance, like with a bow and doing, rains of arrows and things of that nature. So food for thought. Guides are great, especially after you've got the prologues underneath your belt and you're wanting to get into the meta of the game. But I would say if this is your first time playing and you're a beginner, don't be afraid to just jump into the prologue, play around at the various different points, find the build that works for you and what is fun for you. Because this game is really huge, and people are putting in hundreds of hours to get to the cap on any given character. So whatever you choose is going to be something that you're going to be playing for a long time. So get in, find something that works for you, something that's fun for you, and then from there you can choose to explore all the other options. If you like this guide, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update as we continue to play Diablo IV, stream it, play all the other games, check out the other playlists, join our Discord, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Until then, Stay safe and happy gaming.